One day my middleist went to my bookshelf and grabbed off my Shakespeare, and she goes,
Yeah.
"Can I read this?" And I said, "You can try."
Raising a well-behaved child in this world requires strict discipline and punishment. Today, we will look...
No, we will not. Now, what is your take, though, on books?
No censoring books. I support reading to read. Now, it's much like TV and movies where we're going to discuss. If I see my kid grabbing something off the shelf, that might be a little bit more strongly themed. I mean, with my middle schooler, I'm kind of like, read what you want, dude.
Yeah.
If you have questions, if you want to have conversations, let's do that. And I do provide context, especially if they're going to my bookshelf, because I have 4 bookshelves in the house, and I have some of my favorite books from when I was in high school still.
Yeah.
And so those are in that young adult category, but some of them are much more stronger themes, and they are more serious. And so it's, okay, well, this is what this book is about, so be aware of what you're going to engage with. With the littler ones, it's like they're still reading early chapter books. So it's a much easier thing to navigate. But no, I don't censor books, especially because I feel like there's so much that we can gain from them. And though one day my middleist went to my bookshelf and grabbed off my Shakespeare books. I have a collection of Shakespeare, and she grabs this Shakespeare because she liked it, looked cool to her. And she goes, "Can I read this?" And I said, "You can try." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And so she opens Shakespeare and is looking through it, and it's like, "What?" Because she knew they're all words. She could read it, but it's not making sense. And I was like, that's why I said you can try. So then we had a conversation about Old English.
Yeah. I also do not censor books in any way, shape, or form. After we get through reading level stuff, if I can still identify you've got a type of book, if this is a CVC, V word book, we're not at a point where we can, begin discussing, Mom, I'd like to read A Court of Thorns and Roses. No, you're not. We're not. No. And that's not so much a censorship. That's more of a practical readiness level. Not only are there themes in A Court of Thorns and Roses that are incredibly heady for small children, you just don't have the reading level on yet to try that one yet. We're not there yet. We got to practice more before we get there.
And I think that's the thing with books, is that especially when we're talking about young kids, the things that they're going to want to read, we don't really have to worry about them getting to that type of book.
But as far as even with my teenager, who is old enough to vote as of this calendar year.
That's wild.
I know. Even with my teenager, I know, because I have a good relationship with her, what her thresholds are. So I was reading Fourth Wing, and she was like, a bunch of my friends have read Fourth Wing, and I hear you talk about Fourth Wing, and I hear you talk about Fourth Wing with your friends.
I have to interject on the Fourth Wing thing. Okay, Gwenna and I are in a group chat with some of our other friends, and they are all reading this book. I haven't read it, and I feel so left out. So sometimes I'll just say something random just to feel included in their Fourth Wing conversations. So I don't even know about this book. So on our podcast, I'm going to feel left out of this conversation. I'm kidding.
Tori. Anyway, so my eldest was like, I think maybe I want to read Fourth Wing. And I was like, you're absolutely welcome to read Fourth Wing, but I can guarantee you will not like it. Would you like to read it for the story? Then by all means, but just skip this chapter and this chapter. You won't like those chapters. Because she
Skipping
has
a chapter. That feels wrong.
Well, Fourth Wing is a spicy romance.
I didn't know that. Like, I literally had no idea about this book. So, okay, now that makes sense that you would tell your kid to skip that chapter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the chapters we're skipping are chapters that primarily focus on the sexual relationship between the two characters. And it's not because I'm trying to censor the sex. It's because I know my oldest daughter is at a point where she would not enjoy reading those things. It would be...
Yeah.
it wouldn't even be uncomfortable because, oh my God, it's sex. It would be uncomfortable because it's cringy as fuck reading how someone else describes sex.
It is. Oh my God.
And now, that being said, if you absolutely adore reading spicy romance and those scenes really connect with you, I'm not saying that you are wrong. I'm saying that for me and the daughter that came out of me and from me, it sometimes gets super cringe to read sex scenes. Just listening. Y'all, nether lips. I read the word nether lips, not in Fourth Wing.
My jaw is on the floor right now.
So nether lips. I'm not telling anyone how to write their book, but that maybe is a line too far. I don't care that they've been using it since the Harlequin novels in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
So don't call that nether lips. But that's the sort of stuff that when I talk about, I'm not so much censoring. I'm not saying you can't read Fourth Wing. I'm just saying I know you and I don't think you're going to like Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
She just doesn't like romance. She's more of a crime drama, murder mystery, tense thriller kind. Nothing about the book of Fourth Wing, despite being really popular, is going to appeal to her. The story, the dragons, much less the spicy romantic scenes. None of it. It's not a book that you'll like, but you can read it. I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah. No, that's my kid is a Warrior Cats kid. We know this. We like Warrior Cats. We kind of left the phase, which was interesting. I didn't foresee that happening because Warrior Cats fans are Warrior Cats fans for life.
Right.
I know this to be true. Now we are back in Warrior Cats because a new graphic novel came out.
It's going to cycle back around. It always does.
But we, so my kid is in like the honors ELA classes and stuff. They have these big book projects they do per quarter. And last year it was like the same thing. And the one project, my kid didn't read a new book, just picked a book they already read it. I was like, bro, like, come on. I'll let it slide this time, but let's read a new book.
All of the Captain Underpants books out of my daughter's room in like middle school because she was told she had to read so many hours. And so I walked in and she was reading one. And I walked in 3 days later and she was reading one. I was like, ma'am, that's the same one. Have you been reading that same book for 3 days? Because that wasn't a timeline that was appropriate for her to be able to read these books at all. She goes, oh, no, I started it again. No, you did not. Go to the library. You can't reread it 3 days after you already read it.
That's like we have comfort shows. My middleest kiddo has comfort books, and it's The Diary of the Wimpy Kids, and then this graphic novel series about the American Revolution. But so I think it's funny we're talking about what we let our kids read, right? Because I was trying to encourage my kid to read new types of books, and I grabbed a book off of my shelf that, with my parent discernment, I was like, this one is not a young adult novel, but I think you'll enjoy it. And it was Hank Green's. And what is the name of that book? It's Absolutely Remarkable Thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I loved that book and I loved the sequel. And so I got my kid, I was like, here, I think you would like this. Right. And so they were really hesitant because anytime I recommend something, we have to hate it first.
Mm-hmm.
So then they get into it, right? And I notice our nose is always in this book. 2 days later, book's finished. And I said, well, how'd you like it? And my kid said, well, how dare you not already have given me the sequel? You know? And then they laughed at me because they were like, also, Mom, I am shocked that you gave me like such a grown-up book. And I was like, wait, was it? And my kid's like, well, there was this huge violence scene at the end and a lot of swear words in it. And I was like, oh, I forgot. I loved the story and I knew you would love it. So here's the sequel.
Right.